lot of people overcomplicate things when they start their own business, and it causes a lot of frustration, a lot of wasted money, a lot of wasted time, and unfortunately, it causes a lot of businesses to go out of business. This year, the businesses that I own will collectively bring in more than $50 million in revenue, and I was able to grow my businesses to be this big by not overcomplicating things, but by actually making things much more simple. So in this video, I'm going to give you the full secret sauce to how to not only grow a business that makes you a ton of money, but also a business that doesn't make your life miserable. I also want to show you how to build a business that gives you tons of free time and gives you the life that you set out to have when you first started your business. Now, the first thing you have to understand is that business is all about solving problems for people or other businesses. And when the value of solving the problem is more than the fees that you're charging to solve it, well, that's when you end up getting paid, and that's when you end up with a very successful business. That's all there is to it. For example, restaurants are solving the problem that people are hungry. A roofer is solving the problem that my roof is leaking, and my accountant solves the problem that I need to file my taxes. Now, I know this sounds simple, but most business owners forget this universal basic truth. Now, once you have a product or service that solves a problem that people will pay you for, you only need to focus on 4 things to create a business that's going to change your life forever. The first thing we need to focus on is leads, because leads are to a business as gasoline is to a car. Without either, you're not going anywhere. Now, the first thing you have to ask yourself when it comes to generating more leads is, who are your ideal clients or customers? And the reason this is important is because so many businesses, they try to talk to everybody, but if you speak to everybody, you're actually speaking to nobody. For example, if you're an accountant and you work with high net worth individuals, those people have very different problems than someone who's in the middle class or someone who's working a 9-to-5 job who just needs to file their taxes after receiving a W-2 at the end of the year. If you talk about the problems of someone in the middle class in your marketing, then someone who is wealthy is not going to pay any attention to you, and you're not going to attract them to your accounting firm. Conversely, if you talk about the problems that wealthy people have, then people who are in the middle class or W-2 earners are not going to resonate with that message either. Now, there's no right or wrong answer for who you should target, but you do have to target somebody. Different people, depending on their demographics and psychographics, they have different problems, and as we said, business is all about solving problems. Now, once you have your avatar and you've listed out all the small problems that your specific avatar has, then you can start putting out content that helps them solve these small problems. And my philosophy throughout my entire business has always been that if I can help people solve enough small problems, they will eventually go on to hire me to solve the big problem. Now, once you've identified the problem, the next step is to create awareness, and you can do this in a few different ways. Now, my favorites are either organic social media, meta ads, or Google ads. Now, all 3 of these have different applications, but the one thing that they all have in common is that if you can lead by calling out the specific problems that your specific dream customers, clients, and patients have, then they will start to pay attention to you. You always want to make sure that all of your ads and all of your messaging is talking about them and what they want, not about you and your business. I've seen so many businesses make this mistake over and over and over again. They put out ads just talking about themselves, and then they wonder why people aren't watching their videos, why they're not clicking on their ads, or why they're not converting on their landing pages. So all you have to do is call out the problems that are preventing them from getting what they want. Then you can show them how you can help them get it. Then talk about what their life is going to be like after they get the thing. This has been the formula that I've used for the last 10 years to grow multiple businesses in multiple different industries, and it hasn't failed me yet. Now, once you start using this strategy, I promise you, you're going to start getting lots of leads. But here's the next problem. All the leads in the world are useless without a system to convert them from lead into paying customer. That's why the second thing you need to focus on is sales. Now, fortunately, sales is actually really easy if you understand a few basic things that I'm going to cover right now. The first thing you have to understand is the concept of the dominant buying motive. When you're on a sales call, or when your team is on a sales call with a prospect, it's critical that you find the dominant buying motive. The dominant buying motive is the internal reason that they actually want to buy the thing that you're selling, or why they actually want the outcome that you can provide. So, for example, let's say you're in the fitness industry and you're talking to somebody who's severely overweight, and they called you because they said they want to lose 50 pounds by Christmas. Now, you could have a conversation with them about how you're going to help them lose weight, how you're going to help them put together a fitness plan and a nutrition plan so that they can lose weight and all that stuff. That's what most people do, and this is a big problem. The problem is, at this point, you haven't identified their true dominant buying motive. What's the actual reason that they want to lose the weight? And the truth is, this is different for everybody. Now, the way that you identify the dominant buying motive is by asking questions, and a lot of them. So the first thing in the scenario that you're going to want to do is the general fact-finding questions, such as, How much do you eat on a daily basis? How much do you weigh? What's your goal? What are your daily habits? What types of food do you like? What types of foods do you not like? What exercises do you do? And so on and so forth. But this is where most people stop. And this is what separates the amateurs from the professionals. Now, the next set of questions is where all the money is made. That question starts with, why do you want to lose this weight in the first place? What does having an extra 50 pounds right now prevent you from doing that you can't do otherwise? What will you be able to do once you lose those 50 pounds that you can't do now? You see, when you start asking these questions, you'll start getting the real reason that they want to lose weight. Because you can have 10 people that all want to lose 50 pounds, and each of them can have a different reason that they want to lose the 50 pounds. For example, maybe one of them had a family member that recently passed away from heart disease due to obesity, and they want to make sure that they don't die early and leave their kids without a parent. Maybe another person is going to their 20th high school reunion, and they don't want to be embarrassed when they go to the reunion. Another person possibly has a wedding coming up next year, and they want to look great in their wedding dress, and they want to look great for their future spouse in all the pictures. 3 different people, same goal, but 3 different dominant buying motives. Now, once you identify the dominant buying motive for that individual, the rest of the sales call and the rest of the consultation should not revolve around your service. The rest of the call and the consultation should simply be demonstrating how your service is going to help them achieve their dominant buying motive. So, back to the personal trainer. You're not talking about how you're going to help them lose 50 pounds. You're talking about how you're going to ensure that they're healthy and they have a long life with their kids. Or you're going to talk about how your program is going to make everybody do a double take when they see them at the high school reunion. Or how amazing they're going to look in their wedding dress when they're walking down the aisle, and the look on their groom's face when they see them for the first time. This is what sells. And the way that you do this is by asking questions and asking questions and asking questions. Just remember, in sales, he who talks the most, or she who talks the most, makes the least. Now, one tool that I like using is a Zoom call recorder called Fathom. And the reason I like using this call recorder is because it will actually show you what percentage of the time you spoke and what percentage of the time the prospect spoke. Bad salespeople talk 75% of the time. Good salespeople talk 25% of the time or less during a sales call. Believe it or not, the more you talk, the less control you actually have over the call. So the truth is, the person asking the questions is the person controlling the call, not the person who's talking the most. Now, the second part of building an amazing sales system is follow-up, because most sales happen between the 5th and the 12th touch, but hardly any salespeople or brands even get to the 5th touch. Putting in a system where you consistently touch base with the lead before and after the sales consultation, especially if they didn't buy, is what will drastically increase your sales. Now, the way to follow up without becoming annoying or feeling like a pushy salesperson is to continue providing value to them. So you can follow up with a text the next day that says, "Hey Steve, great talking to you the other day. I was just thinking about something, and you mentioned you were drinking a lot of diet soda. One thing that might help you with your weight loss journey is to switch to sparkling water instead. Here's one that's my favorite. You should try it out and let me know what you think." Now, the reason that you're doing this is because you want to constantly remind them that you're there, but you don't want to keep pestering them and asking if they're ready to sign up. They know exactly why you're reaching out. And this makes it so you're staying in contact with them, but you're not being annoying. In fact, you're doing the opposite. You're providing them with additional value, and you're proving you can help them by actually helping them. Now, I have a client that switched to using this type of follow-up, and it added $30,000 per month every single month to his business. And the reason you want to do this is because in sales, when they feel like you need them, they feel like they don't need you. And by just doing these 2 things, finding the dominant buying motive and following up by providing additional value, you're going to be better than 90% of the businesses out there. Now, let's say you get tons of leads and you implement the sales system that I spoke of, and now you're getting lots and lots of business, lots of clients, and making lots of money. Well, that's why the third element that you need to grow an amazing business is a team of A-level employees. Because if you don't have a team of A-level employees to help you do the work, then one of 2 things is going to happen. The first possibility is you'll end up working 90 hours a week, which is absolutely miserable, and I do not recommend you try to do that. The second thing that could happen, that will also happen if you work 90 hours a week, but this is going to happen either way, is that you're going to be the one doing all the work, so the results that you get for your customers and your clients is not going to be great, which is going to cause you reputational damage, it's going to cause refunds, and it's going to make the sales process way more difficult. And ultimately, this could destroy your business. So it's essential that you have a team to help you do the work. So the first question I always get asked is, well, how do I find a team? Well, one thing that we have found, and we've proven this with our clients over and over and over again, is that A-level employees, A players, those are the only types of employees that you should ever hire. But the challenge is these types of employees are extremely hard to find, and the reason they're so hard to find is because they can work anywhere because they're so good. So you have to create an environment that not only attracts employees, but attracts A-level employees, because B-level and C-level employees are the recipe for a disaster in a business. So the first question we have to ask ourselves is, what does an A player want so that we can build an environment that's actually going to attract them? Well, the first thing that they want is they want to work for a company that has some sort of mission. When Steve Jobs was recruiting John Scully, who was the CEO of Pepsi at the time, he asked him over and over and over again to leave Pepsi and come be the CEO of Apple. And John Scully kept saying no, until Steve Jobs asked him this one question. And that question was, do you want to sell sugar water your entire life, or do you want to come with me and change the world? Now, I'm not saying you have to change the world, but you do have to have a clear vision of where your company is going. For example, we help all of our clients create what we call a vivid vision, which is a document that clearly outlines where their company is going over the next 3 years. What's the impact that they're going to have on their clients? What is the impact that they'll have on the community? What will their team culture be like? What impact will the employees have? And what impact will the company have on the employees' lives? Now, I know this sounds cheesy. I know, and I can hear your eyes rolling right now, but here's the truth. You're asking somebody to work 40 hours a week to help you build your dream. There's only 168 hours in a week. So what would motivate somebody to spend 25% of their life dedicated to building your dream? And if you don't have a good answer to that question, then you're not going to get A-level employees. It's as simple as that. So you can use ChatGPT to help you create a vivid vision in just about 45 minutes. Then you can send that vivid vision to a graphic designer and have them create a great looking PDF for the vivid vision. Now you can send this to every candidate that you either reach out to for recruiting purposes or that applies to work at your business. And this will immediately set you apart from all the other businesses out there, because I guarantee you 99% of businesses are not doing this. So the next question is, how many employees do you need? Well, if you have A-level employees, you need fewer employees. A-level employees typically will cost about 25% more in salary, but as I've experienced time and time again, they'll give you 5 times the output of a regular employee. In fact, Bill Gates once said that an A-level coder is worth 10,000 times the price of a regular run-of-the-mill programmer. And I found this to be true in every business that I've ever had. Now, another thing this allows you to do is not hire as many people, because when you have 5 times the productivity, you need fewer people. At SMB Team, we stick with a ratio of 1 employee for every $250,000 in company revenue. And this allows us to maintain tight financial restraints and ensure that we're not just hiring people for the sake of hiring, which eats up profits and is a mistake that I've made more times than I care to admit. Now, another great tip is before posting a job, make a list of the roles and responsibilities of that job. Then take those roles and responsibilities and put them into ChatGPT. Now, ask ChatGPT what is the ideal Colby A index and DISC profile of the candidate for this role. Then, when you're screening candidates, have them take these 2 personality tests and look for the candidates that match the ideal personality profiles for the position. This way, you'll be much more likely to hire the right person for the right role. Sometimes we have a great candidate, but their personality is not great for the specific role. For example, I'm a fantastic strategist, but I'm a terrible implementer. So you would never want me in a million years to be the COO of a company. However, my current role, which is Chief Innovation Officer, is a perfect fit for me because I'm a great generator of leads and everything else that that role requires. If I were COO of the company, I'd probably get fired my first week. Finally, my favorite way to find an amazing team and find the best people is to identify people in similar roles at companies that are bigger in revenue and success than my company. And then I reach out to them on LinkedIn and I ask them if they'd be open to hearing about a new opportunity. If they say no, then we just move on. But if they say yes, then we send them our vivid vision and we ask them if they'd like to speak. This is how we recruited some incredible employees that were not looking for jobs when we approached them. Because the best time to find the best employees is when they're not currently looking for a job, but they're also not happy at their current job. Okay, so now let's say we've got tons of leads, a great sales system, so we're making lots of sales, and we've got a great team that we're putting in place. The final step is to make sure that all the numbers work together, because without this one piece, this financial clarity, you're going to have a great business that does a lot of money in revenue and makes you 0 profit. And I made this mistake for many, many years. In fact, just 2 years ago, we brought in $25 million in revenue and a dreadful 3% profit, which is absolutely terrible. I hate admitting it. It's pretty embarrassing, but luckily I learned my lesson. We fixed our problems, and this year we're close to 27% profit at $50 million in revenue across all my companies, which is a number that I'm very, very happy with. Now, a lot of times what we see happen is your revenue goes up and you hire people because you're growing, so your expenses go right up with it. So you're making more money, but then you look at your bank account and it's not growing. So what we have found is there's a few numbers that you really have to pay attention to. The first is your CAC, your cost to acquire a customer. The second number to pay attention to is your lifetime value of a customer, which is how much that customer will pay you over the time that they are a customer of your business. Another number to pay attention to is your gross margin, and that's what's left over after you deliver your service before overhead. So for example, let's just say for simple math, you have a $500 lifetime revenue on average per customer, and your COGS, your cost to fulfill that service, are $200. That means that your COGS are 40% of the lifetime value, which means you have a 60% gross margin or $300 remaining. If your cost to acquire that customer is $50, that now leaves you with $250 to cover your profit and your overhead, which includes your salaries, maybe your rent, and all of your other expenses. Now, let's assume that we want to make a 20% profit from that lifetime revenue. That's going to be a $100 profit. So you have $500 lifetime revenue minus $200 in COGS, minus $50 to acquire the customer, minus a $100 profit. Now that leaves you with $150 remaining to cover your overhead, your salaries, and all the other expenses that the business has. So the question is, will this suffice to cover all of those expenses? And if not, then you need to adjust your numbers. Either figure out how to increase the lifetime value, figure out how to reduce the cost to acquire, or reduce your COGS. But the problem is so many businesses don't even know these numbers. And if you don't know these numbers, then you're just flying blind. So these are the first numbers that I would start with, especially if you have no idea what your numbers are. And I promise you, if you look into these numbers, you're going to be shocked at what you find. But that's good, because then you can dig in and start finding the leaks and start fixing the problems. Now, if you do all of this, focus on your leads, your sales, your team, and understand your finances, it's very, very difficult not to have a business that creates a life for you and your family that others only dream of. And if you want to see 11 other ways that you can 10x your profits, then watch this video right here.